Dear ISC students, these are two multi-purpose answers from the poem Small Towns and the River written by Mamang Dai. Do check the pinned comment section or the description box for the easy explanation video of this poem. Go through these two sessions and I'm sure you will have a thorough revision of this poem. What is question number 1? The poem Small Towns and the River begins on a somber note but ends on an optimistic note. Discuss. Somber note versus optimism. Gloominess versus optimism. Discuss. This is a very important question from this poem. Small Town and the River by Mamang Dai opens on a somber note. I have taken the introductory statement directly from the question. In this way, I have at once automatically established a relationship between the question and the answer. In this way, the examiner will be impressed. Small Towns and the River by Mamang Dai opens on a somber note. Small towns always remind me of death. A quotation, the first line. The poem reflects on how small towns evoke thoughts of mortality and the inevitability of death. Inevitability of death, mortality of man. All men are mortal and death is inevitable. The poet unfolds the cycle of life and death against the backdrop of our hometown that lies calmly amidst the trees in close connection with nature. The hometown is always the same, unchanging in summer or winter. Regardless of the seasonal changes, the hometown is always the same. The hometown is a symbol of constancy and permanence. The hometown is always the same, unchanging in summer or winter. Metaphorically, dust flying suggests, the image of dust flying suggests that human beings are made of dust and return to dust after death. The hometown represents permanence. While human beings are not permanent on earth, their days are numbered. The dust flying, wind howling down the gorge, making a mournful sound, present a gloomy picture. So this is the first part of the question. This section, somber note. The image of the dust flying, the wind howling, and the permanence of the town, the mortality of men, and the very first line. All these things present a gloomy picture. Next, change paragraph. Always change paragraph. The recent death of an individual, the collective mourning of the community in dreadful silence. The wreath of tuberoses add to the somber atmosphere. Tuberoses, funeral ceremony, visual image. So, the collective mourning. In dreadful silence we wept, the collective mourning of the community. And the wreath of tuberoses add to the somber atmosphere. See how I am justifying the standpoint that indeed the poem begins on a somber note. Human life is transitory. Only the rituals handed down from one generation to another, those rituals are permanent, enduring beyond individual lifespans. People die and those who live mourn over their loss and they perform the rituals. So they perform the rituals. Now, after the images of death and grief, Dai personifies the river. Now comes the symbol. Another important symbol, an image also, a metaphor also, the river as having a soul. This river has a soul, symbolizing timelessness, immortality, and has a spiritual dimension to its existence. The river knows, that is, the river knows, gains wisdom as it flows through many towns, communities along its course. its continuity and enduring nature, symbolizing the immortality of water, highlights its eternal essence. Again, Dai makes a juxtaposition of the impermanent nature of human life with the perpetual flow of water to present the concept of afterlife. Very, very important. The perpetual flow of water and the concept of afterlife means human beings die, physically they die, mortality of man, but after their death, the soul flows, passes into another higher realm. The soul has a spiritual awakening, a spiritual elevation, and this is the concept of afterlife. Yes, death brings sadness and eternal separation, but death also means a medium, a passage. If you cross that path, if you cross that phase, you will flow like a river into the afterlife, and the soul will continue into a higher realm. So, death, yes, grief, but afterlife is hope, renewal and restoration. This is the concept, dear students. And this is why the poem ends on a note of optimism. The dead are placed pointing west when the soul rises, the rising of the soul, the awakening of the soul, spiritual enlightenment of the soul after death. It will walk into the golden east, full of hope, renewal, restoration, rejuvenation, symbolic of spiritual elevation, divine enlightenment. The cool bamboo bathed in sunlight represents renewal and rebirth. The poem ends on a note of optimism, restoration and hope. The poem presents the collective desire for transcendence, going beyond limits of human existence. Human existence is limited, short-lived, okay, but immortality of the soul, immortality of water. So there is a connection, all part of nature, and this shows how inseparable life, death, all these concepts are. Thus life and death are interconnected. So this is the answer. I hope I have made myself clear. This is a very interesting poem. So this is a multi-purpose answer, question 1, and again question number 2, another multi-purpose answer. And also again I'm repeating, go through my easy explanation video and all your doubts will be cleared. Discuss how the poet has used the river as a metaphor to depict the theme of the poem. The image of the river in Mamang Dai's Small Towns and the River is a metaphor that adds depth and meaning to the poem. It embodies the natural world. The river embodies the natural world, highlighting the interconnectedness of human life with the environment, connection to nature. The poet's hometown lies calmly amidst the trees. The river cuts through the land, stretching past the town from the first drop of rain to dry earth and mist on the mountains like a torrent of grief. All these things are there in the poem. This shows, the flow of the river shows its dynamic nature. It is not stagnant. The river's dynamic nature, its forceful movement is likened to a surge of sorrow, torrent of grief. The town, on the other hand, stands for stagnation, mourning the deaths of the inhabitants from time to time. So we have stagnation on one hand, we have impermanence on one hand, we have permanence on the other hand, and dynamic nature on the other hand. So, juxtaposition. This juxtaposition is meaningful, and I have mentioned this in the conclusion. The river has a soul, a spiritual significance, and it has a connection to the human experience. Through the juxtaposition means placing side by side two opposing ideas of the impermanent nature of life with the perpetual flow of the river. The poet reminds us of the passage of time. So we have the flow of time, the passage of time, the flow of the river, flow of the soul. from the earth, from its earthly existence into afterlife. So this is this flow. Along its course of flow, the river gains wisdom. It knows a knowingness that extends beyond the confines of time. That goes beyond, that extends beyond the confines of the town, emphasizing on the continuity and immortality. So, minor correction over here. Similarly, although death is inevitable, it serves as a medium through which the soul passes into the afterlife. After the innocence of childhood, the happy pictures, there are phases. The anxious, uncertain moments of adulthood, death overpowers men. But the soul rises into the golden east, into the house of the sun. The soul continues, continuity of the river, continuity of time, and continuity of the soul into the afterlife like the flow of river. In the context of the poem, the river may also represent the cultural heritage and rituals of the people living in the small towns along its banks. The collective yearning for spiritual elevation, the awakening of the soul, symbolize hope, renewal, and optimism. In this way, Dai depicts the paradoxical relationship between the permanence of nature, human soul, traditions, and the ephemerality of life on earth. Now, what is ephemerality? Transitory nature of life on earth, impermanence of life on earth, and paradoxical, again, the concept of permanence versus impermanence. And she does it through the symbol of the river. We have the symbol of small towns also, and she uses river to depict this thematic thread of the poem. So I hope these answers, these reference materials will help you. Again, all the best and study well.